I'm Ashank Desai, IT industry, Mastech. I'm far away from the state, I'm in Mumbai, but we are always confused with this issue of Kaveri water dispute, which has been brewing for how many years, I don't know. There is a tribunal which gave some 192 cm, and now the Supreme Court has reduced it. I think both the parties are unhappy all the time. And then there is some board to be formed, which I think Karnataka doesn't agree, etc. What are your views, and what do you think should be done? Because this needs to be resolved someday, I hope.
Yes, it can be done because there are precedents. The Honorable PM, while he was in Gujarat, was able to settle a dispute, very similar dispute between four states, four states, I think, four states. So four or three, four states. So it is not such an insurmountable problem if the politics will just stand aside and logic will come into place, logistics will come into place, then we can quickly solve the problem. But it seems like people are driving it, they're not. Uh, it can be solved, but it has to be left to the actual users. There was something called the Kaveri family. The farmers had a communion. They spoke to each other, and that begat better results than all these squabbling in the court. Because ultimately, Kaveri was there when we were monkeys, and it will still be there. We only hope that we don't pollute it, that you can't call it Kaveri anymore. That's happening. What we can do, as far as whatever the numbers, we'll have to fight for our rights. We will. We can't even bring about the logic of riparian rights because nobody seems to be hearing. But there is something that has to be done which they are not doing. That's because politics is meddling with it. Too many cooks is spoiling the river. But what we can do, the best we can do in a situation like this is to conserve water. The rainfall in Tamil Nadu is enviable, very enviable compared to other states. We have abundant rain, and we have been draining it all away with disregard. Chennai itself is a great example of how two rivers have been turned to sewers. In my time, I have seen that it may not have been potable, but at least it was navigatable. I could dip my hand in it and come back without jaundice. But that's not the case now. It's a simple solution. An engineer would be able to give a simple solution to solve that problem. It's not been solved. In the last 40 years, promises have been made. We have two rivers. The very reason why the British chose this as a vantage point was because of these two rivers and the waterways. We've ruined it all. That's what we have to take care of. We have to take care of our water bodies and conserve and garner all the rainfall that we are getting. That's the best that we can think of at this moment. But the debate for riparian rights and water to come into Tamil Nadu will continue. It's now become boring for the onlookers because we know why it's going on. It's pure politics, and it should move away from it and come towards the people. Thank you, sir.
You're starting a regional party. The bigger question is, we are part of a national federation, and what is good for the state like Tamil Nadu and for development? A strong single. What is good for Tamil Nadu? A strong national party like BJP and Congress in the center, or a coalition of all regional parties forming a central government? Which will be better, in your opinion, for the development of state?
I think we must have the federal outlook. Well, thank you, sir. Thank you. I have some supporters here for that. We must, and the diversity of the nation demands that. And we must have that, and that will be the best policy to pursue. Whatever happens in the center, whether it's coalition or it's a large government, we should never let go of the regional rights. And we should have that, not wait for concurrence on every little step that we are taking forward. That's our view. That's the Makal Nidhi Mayam's view on it.
We too traveled some years back in a warship. I hope you remember that. My question, I will come to that. If you become your power source, I am not saying a chief minister, I hope you understand. If you become your power source, what you will do first for education institutes, for industry and for public?
As we have been discussing, education will have to create graduates who are employable, which means the quality will have to come up. Industry, I'm going to talk to all of you people and come out with a policy. That's as simple as that. And whatever happens, as you say, whether it's power or not, we will continue to talk for the betterment of Tamil Nadu. That will continue.
As you said, in the last few years, things have gone downhill. What we would be keen to know from your point of view is why it has gone downhill, and what are the corrections that you think will bring it back not only to the past glory, but even beyond that?
Thank you. I think it's time to stop whining now because things are done. It's 15 years of a fast downhill road that we have taken. But now I think the onus is on us to really wake up and raise a voice. And criticizing the government is one form of it. You can tell them, raise your voice, but we'll have to think even further ahead than that. And one of the things that I truly believe that industrialists can do is, I truly believe that the survival of Tamil Nadu is mainly going to be from small entrepreneurs. The big ones are there, we're proud of them, that's fine. But we must also build small entrepreneurs, because $1 million companies still makes a $6 billion company, according to me. And I know, yeah, thank you. You can, feel free. But at the same time, we must have our big giants too. But we must take this forward, and we will help that happen. That will increase employment. That's what we have to do. And the government, of course, will have to help. And we must insist that they do. What happened in the 15 years, that post-mortem is not the most important exercise now, because that's done. And now we have to think ahead. Post-mortem, everybody knows. The politicians are busy taking care of themselves and not the state. Now the time has come when we all have to pitch in, including the politicians. If they don't wisen up now, they never will. And it'll change. And for the integrity of the nation, the unity of the nation, we must all get together. One vertical at a time. And this is one vertical I'm proud to address.
Sir, I think you rightly said that there is no point of doing the post-mortem of what happened in past, and actually we have to move for future and look, because only those people who look at future are more successful. So I fully endorse your view. My question is that though the past we cannot do post-mortem, it's very important that we learn from the past mistakes so that we don't repeat those mistakes. So what are the 3 important things which you feel should not be done in Tamil Nadu or in India to make sure that our future is bright?
Check. There's a litany of woes that we could sell, and I could create a chorus in this room to follow me. Well, that's not what we are saying. There's so many that we could quickly list. For example, if Ficki's study shows, I think 2016, that 80% of the educated lot are not employable. That's a dire state to be in. And that's why I'm pushing towards small business enterprises, because at least they will divert their attention towards better self-improvement, and more employment opportunities would come out of it. Right now we have engineers ready to become village administration officers, PhDs who sign up to become village administration officers. That should change. And I think, having been part of skill set development council in Vicky, I feel that that's a new satyagraha that the nation should take up. Developing the skill of the nation in every vertical. I used to be the Media and Entertainment Skill Development Council chairman for a while, and we took up that responsibility with pride. And more people should come. If we develop those many skills, people will come towards us, and nations will come towards us, because we're going to show the number by sheer mass, and if they are skilled, it's going to be an extraordinary country. It's not an easy slope to climb, but we can, we must. And we already have good things going for us, like we are bilingual in nature, which is fantastic. So that way we are a step ahead of China, who's trying to catch up by teaching the population English. So we have the many things. What should be done, we all know. The government, which should be running proper educational institutions, at least monitoring whether they are being done, instead spends most of its energy in task mark. That could be done by any entrepreneur. But whereas big officers are set about to take care of a business which anybody could take care of. But there are certain responsibilities that the government will have to come forward and take it and see that discipline is maintained, be it in the industry or education. They can be strict but also helpful, and that's what they should do. Now, it's neither this nor that. There's total disregard. They've eschewed us and continued with their lives.
Will you be able to continue your political journey, even if it is not able to capture the power, irrespective of success or failures in capturing the power? Are you sure about continuing your political journey?
Yes. I'll tell you why I came at all in the first place. To challenge the status quo, to do away with the stagnancy, and to tell people that yes, integrity and honesty has a place in that assembly. And that is why I'm here. That is my life's work. I've done my bit as an actor. This is the rest of my life. And that's what I'd like to tell you, sir.
Sir, this is Prabhu Gandhi Jain from Construction Industries. 2 points, sir. A lot of central government fund is allotted to Tamil Nadu. For example, central government funding, for example, Smart City, Digital India, also unutilized and is returning back to the central government. So, FICCI kind of setup can act to support the state government to how to utilize that kind of Smart City funding. For the Smart City funding, Tamil Nadu, like every festival, Pongal, Diwali, we are facing all kind of disaster management, Varda, Ukipil. So this kind of thing, FICCI can support in this area for developing the smart city like that. Funding utilizing.
Yes.
It will support in the job creation area, sir. Lot of job generation will be generated to the youngsters.
I do understand, sir, but I can't, I shouldn't be speaking for FICCI, but I know the mindset and the philosophy of Vicky. They will.
So
help
your
it.
innovation, that mobile app is an excellent, sir. It's a
Thank you.
whistleblower system, is a very good. We can track, now we are all act as a police, so we can able to do so.
Thank you.
And
Thank you. But-
final question, sir.
But you must understand, Vicky and the central fund is not the only problem that, they are not the only solvers of the problem.
Yes, sir.
That's
Yes,
what
sir.
I'm saying.
Yes, sir.
When you say the word fund
Yes, sir.
in politics, the first reaction is how to reach it. Not for the people. For people who think that they can take it away for themselves. That has to stop. It seems very simple. It's like saying being honest. Yeah, it's a simple word, but it's a great exercise. We have to be all part of it. It's a very simple word. Honesty may not be the best policy, but it's a great luxury. Very few people can afford it. I want you all to be able to afford it. I have afforded it with great pain, but I'm enjoying the fruits of it. Thank you, sir.
வணக்கம் சார், நான் ராம் பிரகாஷ். ஆக்சுவலாக இவ்வளோ ஒரு நல்ல இன்டலெக்சுவல் எங்களுடைய மையத்துக்கு வந்திருக்கிறது ரொம்ப மகிழ்ச்சி, கிடைச்சதுக்கு ரொம்ப மகிழ்ச்சி. என்னுடைய கேள்வி என்னென்னா சார், இப்போ 25 ஆண்டுகளுக்கு முன்னாடி குளோபலைசேஷன் வேண்டாம் அப்படின்னு சொன்ன நாடுகள் எல்லாமே இன்றைக்கு குளோபலைசேஷனுக்குள்ளே வேணும்னு சொல்கிறாங்க. அதாவது சைனா, மற்ற நாடுகள்லாம். அதே சமயம் குளோபலைசேஷனை சப்போர்ட் பண்ண கவர்மெண்ட் அரசுகள்லாம், அமெரிக்கா, பிரிட்டன் போன்ற நாடுகள் எல்லாமே இன்றைக்கி ஒரு ப்ரொடெக்ஷனிசத்துக்குள்ளே போகிறாங்க. இப்போ நம்ம நாடு, அதாவது நம்ம இந்தியா அல்லது நம்ம தமிழ்நாடு, ஏன்னா நம்மளுடைய ஜிடிபி வந்து இன்றைக்கி செகண்ட் பொசிஷனில் இருக்கிறதுனால, தமிழ்நாட்டோட ஜிடிபி செகண்டில் இருக்கிறதுனால, இது உலக அளவுலையும் பெரிய தாக்கத்தை ஏற்படுத்துறதுனால நம்ம ப்ரொடக்ஷனிசத்துக்குள்ளே போகணுமா அல்லது குளோபலைஸ்டு எக்கனாமிக்குள்ளே போகணுமா?
இல்லை, ப்ரொடெக்ஷனிசம்ங்கிறது வந்து ஒரு நீஜாக் ரியாக்ஷன் சார். அதுக்குள்ளே நம்ம போக வேணாம். அண்ட் அனதர் திங், நம்ம யூரோப்பை பார்த்து தான் எல்லாம் கற்றுக்கணுங்கிறது இல்லைங்க. For a moment I thought, let's skip the subject. It's getting just interesting. No, the protectionism வந்து ஒரு knee-jerk reaction. அது வந்து நம்ம யூரோப் கிட்ட, you want me to talk in English? Yeah, okay. Right. Now, we need not follow everything from Europe. We have our own philosophies. We have done it before, we can do it again. And we will find the correct mix of what is good for the country and what is ethical to do in a highly populated country like us. And we will do that. And the whole world will realize that protectionism may not be protective enough for those who seek it. அதாவது இந்த ப்ரொடெக்ஷனிசம்ங்கிறது வந்து அதை நாடுபவர்களுக்கு கூட கிடைக்காது, அந்த நாடுகளுக்கு கூட கிடைக்காமல் போய்விடும். எதிர்காலம் உலகத்தை ஒரு 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 இடமாக பார்க்க போகிறது. ஒவ்வொரு தனித்தனி மைசூர் பாகு சமைக்கும் போது ஒரு ட்ரேயில் ஊற்றிடுவாங்க, அதுக்கப்புறம் நறுக்கும். அதான் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்காங்க இப்போ. அது கடைசியில் மறுபடியும் கொஞ்ச நாள் விட்டிங்கன்னா எல்லாம் இறுகிடும். இப்போ அதான் நடக்க போகுது.
India as a country is going through a good period of growth. As our president had also mentioned earlier today, our first 60 years was slower, but the last perhaps 15 to 20 years has been faster. And in the time to come, maybe over the next 10 years, we're going to be going through an even more faster growth. So towards these three questions that has come about in my discussion with the attendees today. One is, what should governments in India do in order to be able to capture this growth? So for instance, if you look at the states, if our state in particular does not capture it, then that opportunity goes off to another state. So what should state governments do in order to be able to capture that growth? That's number one. Number two is, it's very good that you have this attention to SMEs. It's a very important focus area, but we cannot forget the large companies as well. The large companies also have a sizable presence here. Plus, there are several companies across India who are interested to come and set up here because of our good labor pool. how do we also show the way for these large companies while at the same time encouraging our SMEs? Both have to go hand in hand. And finally, labor laws. There are several states within our country, whether it's Madhya Pradesh or Rajasthan, have gone about reforming their labor policies, labor laws, and perhaps we have been still in discussions within Tamil Nadu. What are your views on labor law reforming in the course of time, and whether it's going to be progressive or are we going to continue the status quo or if it's going to be regressive?
Okay, that's a long-winded question. I think, as you said, if there is a national growth, Tamil Nadu will definitely want to be part of that too, which right now we are not sure we are. We'd like to be part of it. And I've told you, we are talking at, the present situation is what in the naval language is called the doldrums. So there's no wind to catch our sail, but it soon will happen, and that's what we are all working towards. And then we could discuss policies and the labor laws, but whatever laws that we bring about, once again, like when the Constitution was being done, they asked, the same old man keeps coming back into my conversation, but forgive me, I'm a fan. So they asked Gandhiji what, since he was also a barrister, whether he had any comments on the Constitution. He says the poorest man should benefit. If that happens in your Constitution, it's good. That's how he surmised it in a simple line, because the rest of the nuts and bolts, they were fantastic lawyers working on it. But this is something, the basic tenets of which we should take care. And when we reform the labor laws, this should be kept in mind again. And anything, we must have big industries. When I say that, when I was trying to champion the small industries, it doesn't mean that we'll have to eschew the big ones. They must come. They must also be there, and these people should also continue their endeavor. And but all of them should work within their ethical limits and go by the law of the land and not exceed it in avarice to do better business. That goes for anywhere in the world, and we should follow that. And that's what will be our policy, to facilitate as much as possible to all businesses to grow and flourish, but it will all have to be done with concern for people, laws, and yes, if we have to readdress the labor laws, we will. The reason you became part of the family goes back to Mr. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. That's where it all started, 91 years back. And before I go into what is the best policy or listen to you talk about policies, let me again remember one tenet with which this whole thing began. There is enough for everyone's need, but not for any man's greed. That is Mr. M.K. Gandhi, not my quote, but I have started owning it as if it were mine, and I keep repeating it to great applause every time. And now it's become mine. Most of the wisdom that is passed on should become ours, and that's what we are endeavoring towards. Let me talk about Tamil Nadu. Mr. M.K. Gandhi is an international man. He spoke about the world, he spoke about India, but let me talk about Tamil Nadu. Not because this meeting is held here, but it needs attention. This particular state, which the nation is proud of, it's got nothing to do with parochial borders or chauvinism. The nation is proud of it, and we have proof of it. We are 2 in GDP. Yeah, all that is fine. The first quarter since independence was fantastic. Everybody was enthusiastic. Everybody wanted growth, including the political heads. The number of schools opened during the first quarter century, leaving aside the dams built and other things. It was fantastic growth. The second quarter was not bad either. But the last quarter has been bad. Let's say last 15 years, we've been going downhill, and instead of pointing fingers at others, let's all in this room, whoever are doing business in Tamil Nadu, take it up on ourselves to understand that this could have been caused by our complacency. So much so that you have a fiscal deficit of 45,000 crore and then an 18,000 crore, which will grow to 25,000 crores in future. We have to impede this cost on every Tamilian that's happening now. So it's time to take action. We are talking about now first aid rather than a larger service to people. We have to quickly attend to this problem. I'm here to listen to you as a party member, as a party founder. I'm here to listen to you. Instead of telling you my policies, we are working with a group in Harvard who are working on our policies, who are telling us, as we keep relaying the ground level problems to them, we are trying to keep our ears as close to the ground as possible. And we are passing on our what we consider as ailments that is affecting the industries and various other things, especially the industries. We are getting good advice, but when we make policies without your participation in it, it'll just be a monologue. This has to be a dialogue between the industries and the whoever's in the driving seat. Now we are doing our best. We've adopted a few villages. We've gone and fought for causes. We've been champions of the Gram Sabha, which was forgotten. We didn't invent it, but it almost had to be reintroduced to the villages, and we are the proud champions of that cause, and we would like to be your champions too. You tell us. You can even come, not because we are in the driving seat and we can make things happen by magic, but even without being there in the driving seat, we will be able to help you raise your concerns, raise our voice for your sake. And let's have this dialogue. This is not going to be a podium where I address you, say bye and leave. This has to be a continued conversation if we truly believe that Tamil Nadu has potential and must move towards that. And that's what we are aiming to prove to you, that we will make that difference. We will raise that voice for your sake to the existing government. What's the point in all this? So tomorrow, if you put us in the driving seat, you'll know that you had a worthy person who did it in spite of not being there in power. That's the idea, that's the exercise. I could go on with the numbers and various statistics, but you know all of it. So I'm not going to bore you or even pretend that I know a little more than you. I don't. So I'm going to seek your advice, and we can quickly go into a question answer, which is where the dialogue will begin for now. But it'll continue further for quite some time, because this malady that's facing us is not going to go away pretty soon. It'll take time, and we all have to endeavor towards it, and we'll talk. We'll begin the conversation now and see how far it takes us. Thank you.
The measures for the development of the underdeveloped economies. I am going to read out to you what it means. there is a sense in which rapid economic progress is not possible without painful adjustments. Ancient philosophies have to be scrapped. All old institutions have to disintegrate. The bonds of caste, creed, and race have to burst. And large number of people who cannot keep with progress have to have their expectations of a comfortable life frustrated. You know, this became the mandate for the world. This is common to both communism and capitalism. Many of us think communism and capitalism are competing ideologies. They are not competing ideologies. They are fight over who should own the property, whether it should be the state or the individual. It is a property dispute. But what the property should be put to use, what should be the standard of its use, how it should be exploited, on that there is no difference. So we must understand that these competing ideologies had this common social base, that there has to be one universal order of life, culture, value systems, and obviously that is the Western system. And the world believed it and we believed it, it was enforced, our academic system. You know, there are two great persons who influenced the world in the last 150 years, and one was Karl Marx and the other was Max Weber. Marx is known, Weber is not very well known. Max Weber has been a great sociologist who basically structured the idea of methodological individualism, which Mr. Rashesh Shah will certify is the basis for market economics. Individualism will dominate the world, will override the society, will override the family, and the individual choice will determine not only the polity but also economics is the basis of all modern economic theories. Most people do not see this. They go into econometrics, but you have to agree underlying the sociological principles. That has been captured in this document. The idea of both Karl Marx and Max Weber was captured in this document, which became the fundamental basis for how the world will move, and it moved. And after communism collapsed in the year 1989, Francis Fukuyama came out with a book. It is very necessary for all people who believe that they have a duty to understand what happened in the past and what will happen in the future, to shape their own role and thinking. They must read this book, The End of History and the Last Man, which was acclaimed as the Bible of globalization. Francis Fukuyama said that the final battle has been won by the West against the rest, and it is best for the rest to follow the West as the best. It's a simple formula, and the world accepted it. And overnight he became one of the largest selling authors, most acclaimed person. And within 2 years he wrote another book. This first book was read, the next book was not read, and the next book was called The Trust. I have suggested this in my corporate consultancy, in my friendship to all the Indian corporate leaders. You must read this book. That book is called The Trust. That makes a distinction between family-based societies and individualism-based societies, and how the family-based societies operate business, economics, HR principles, savings, investment, that has been completely captured. There are two dimensions to the global development, and they said Japan, Korea, Taiwan, and all the Asiatic nations, including China. India did not matter at that time. Nobody was bothered about India. India was never in the radar of the world thinkers, much less economists, even much less writers. So, I have suggested this book to be read by all the business people with whom I had either friendship or other professional relationship. In fact, 100 books I bought and gave it to them. How many read, I don't know. But I suggest to you, go and buy this book and read. And that will give you a lot of ideas as to what FICCI should be doing. Anyhow, that's a different matter. So Francis Fukuyama almost rolled back his ideas which he wrote in 1992 and 1994. And economists came out with an editorial, not an editorial, some kind of an article, that what Francis Fukuyama wrote was the end of economics. First he wrote about the end of history, and it became end of economics. Then came Samuel Huntington. He said that the world is going into a state of civilizational clashes. He was hounded as a racist, as someone, but he was basically a strategic thinker. And he combined civilization, economics, politics, military power, history, to capture that the world is going into a mode of civilizational clashes and it cannot be averted. But none of it, no intellectualism in India, no leadership, no politician, no media, no intellectual would even take part in this discussion, which was deciding the course of the world, and we are 1/6 of humanity. Nothing. In 2001, when the Twin Tower attack took place, then the West realized that there is some problem with the way we are leading the world. You must understand. The West took the responsibility of leading the post-war world by suggesting that there is one fit-all model. It is our model. We have worked it. It is successful for us. It will be successful for you also, provided you follow 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This was the basis of what the United Nations said, and all our academics, all our educational policies, all our planning commission documents were founded on this. It is not only us. All the people in the world followed this as the fit-all economic model. And in 2001, the West realized that there is something different happening, and we cannot reduce the whole world to a fit-all economic model. And they came out with something astounding in the year 2005, which is not known even some of the best financial analysts in India. In the year 2005, on 20th October 2005, the G20 nations finance ministers and central bank governors issued this statement. We recognize that there is no uniform development approach that fits all countries. Each country should be able to choose the development approaches and policies that suits a specific characteristics. Have any of you heard this? Just one person, please lift your hand. It is G20 nations who set the monetary umbrella for the world. They disowned that we are anymore the model. I have not come across any economist in India, no think tank in India, no political leader in India. I have not come across many bureaucrats. I have told them, please read this. Quietly the West disowned. G20 constitution is not to unite the world, but to tell the world, you take care of yourself. Then came the World Bank. It's even more interesting that the World Bank, which has always been saying that there is one way, it is highway, it is our way. I will now tell you what happened in the year 1993-94 in Yugoslavia. In Yugoslavia, the running rate of inflation was 2 million percentage points. It was much higher than the post-war inflation of Germany. So when inflation was rising like this, Milosevic, of course, he was a dictator and he did all kinds of wrong things, but he was a patriot. So the World Bank told him, you have to follow the structural adjustment program, otherwise we will not help you. Then Milosevic didn't know what to do. He consulted one Dragoslav Avramek, who was an economist of high repute, 90-year-old man. And he said, I am going to suggest to you to do something, not the World Bank says, in defense of what the World Bank says. This is what the Russians did in 1922. And I am suggesting you do this. You know, everybody had lost faith in the Yugoslavian dinar. And people wanted only dollars or Deutschmark. Their currency was linked to Deutschmark. They had 25 billion Deutschmark as foreign exchange reserves. Dragoslav Avramek said, you issue a dinar too. Link it to the foreign exchange reserves and say it is convertible. And you will ensure that the confidence of the people in your currency returns, and then you will see the result. The World Bank said, if you do it, all your foreign exchange will be converted and all your money will go away. Don't do it. But Milosevic had the guts to do it. You know what happened? In 45 days, the rate of inflation came down to less than 10%. It is recorded. And the foreign exchange reserves went up by 50%. Economist magazine waited for 1 year to see whether this is continuing to succeed. And finally headlined a cover story, The Miracle in Yugoslavia. This is because they thought for themselves. Russians who thought like this in 1922 did not think like this in 1994. They went for structural adjustment. 10 years Russia was on the mat. Why I am mentioning this is that each country has to think for itself is something which the West accepted in 2005, and in 2008 the very institution which forced the Yugoslavians to accept the structural adjustment program which they refused. It said in 2008 May, just before the crisis, West knows one thing. Western thinkers know what exactly will happen to the world 10 years later. But if they tell the truth, that will happen that day itself, and that is why they don't say it. So, in May 2008, the World Bank said, in our work across the World Bank has learned the hard way that there is no one model that fits all. Till day before yesterday, you were saying it, sir. We were framing policies. We were shaping our education. We were shaping our business, saying that there is only one model. You look at that model and you are saying there is no model like that. Development means, above all, having the ability to recognize when we have failed. This is never easy thing to do. Mark these words, Mr. Shah. This is never an easy thing to do. It is even more difficult for an institution like World Bank to say it, because they have always been saying that there is only one way. Not a single article written in India about this. Not a discussion in economic think tanks or universities or within the government or in parliament. And we are 1/6 of humanity. We are one of the rising nations of the world. Then comes the United Nations. The United Nations itself said this one-size-fits-all model which we said in the past is no more valid. Each country has to work out its own model. When this changed actually, this was tested only by Deng Xiaoping. One of the best books about China's developmental efforts, how it was philosophically grounded, socially became acceptable, politically driven, economically producing results, is a book called Deng Xiaoping and the Transformation of China. It was done by 2 Harvard scholars. In that you must read only the first chapter. You can reject the rest. In the first chapter, the scholars say, Deng Xiaoping used to call all the economists and experienced people all over the world. He even took them on a cruise. He will come back and tell his officials, you listen to everybody. Listen to their experiences. But 2 things I will tell you. Please ensure that your statistics doesn't lie, because we have always been producing false statistics and believing it. This is the first change Deng Xiaoping brought about in China. The second thing he said is, you listen to all of them, but do only what will work in China and for China. Have you ever heard this in India? It is happening in America, so it has to happen here. It is happening in England, so it has to happen here. We have messed up our mind. We have ceased to be original. We have our own. You see, I can talk to you a couple of hours on how our economy is being sustained by our families, by our women, by our savings. Just 3% of India's GDP savings gets into the stock market. The stock market in India is driven by FIIs. It is not driven by local savings. Our savings is in banks, it is unfortunately gold, it is in real estate. And all of us do it. But this is not seen as an Indian speciality. We are seeing it has to change. In fact, the Prime Minister in 2005 said, don't go to bank, go to Dalal Street. You know, he made an open statement. But people were not willing to go to Dalal Street. This is our nature. You know, all family-based societies have the least stock market habit. The best example is Japan, which has all the most modern financial instrument traded in Tokyo stock market. But only 9% of Japanese savings is invested in stocks. It is also one of the most efficient economies. But they know how to work their country. A 5-year fixed deposit in Japan carries 0.8% interest. They have worked a low interest mechanism which the world learned in 2009 as early as 2001. In 2001, the Bank of Japan said, you will get no interest if you put money in bank. In 2001 said, if you have to keep your money, you have to pay money to us. The economy worked because it's a specialized economy. So we never understood the originality or speciality or uniqueness of the Indian sociology, Indian family system, Indian relationship-based model. The West is a contract-based society. We are a relation-based society. The same law, the same market principles, business transactions, they don't work in that way here. So the Niti Aayog combined in the Niti Aayog cabinet directive to the Niti Aayog, they put two things. One, they said what precisely Deng said, you only look at what will work in and for India. The second thing he said is that no model which has worked outside India can be transplanted into India unless its validity is tested first. Why I am mentioning all this is, FICCI as an institution has a responsibility. At least one session in your whole year, you should never devote to current affairs. Look at what should happen to the country 5 years later, 10 years later. Today there is no statesman. Everybody is concerned with the next election. Do you mean to say an unstable polity can produce stable economics? And if you are going to look at only Q3 results, Q4 what will happen? If this is going to be your tension, are you going to produce a stable market economics? It calls for a very different approach. I have been crying hoarse with policymakers, with the media, with business people, with whom I have close associations. Think different. At least one session of you in your whole, I don't know how many times you meet in a year, one session you will say we will not discuss the current affairs. We will discuss about comparative economics all over the world. What different thinkers in the world are saying, how the world has moved, what happened in Yugoslavia in 1995. Internalize the capacity and the conviction and the ability and the skill to think differently. This has been my appeal, and that's what I wanted to tell you today. I don't know what is your concern. You may be concerned with some labor law, this or that. I am not concerned with it. There are many people who are much better experts than me to deal about that subject. But this is a subject which I have studied for 30 years. I studied it because of a totally fortuitous situation. I have been a corporate advisor. I have been talking to corporate people when the onset of globalization came, and everybody was stunned as to what to do. Everybody was confused. My own client said, what do we do? And somebody in the finance ministry told them, you sell off your company. It is much better because we were very good in trading 300 years back, and let us become traders. And now they are saying we cannot even trade, bring traders from outside, and you be employees. You know, this is the kind of economic discourse that is going on in the country in 94, 95. In 92 it started. Then I started traveling across the country. You know why? One of my friends, Dharampal, who was very close to Mahatma Gandhi, told me, when Mahatma Gandhi came back to India after his South African experience, he went to Gokhale, Gopal Krishna Gokhale. Gokhale told him, Mr. Gandhi, in 15, 20 years, this country has changed. You have to renew your familiarity and understanding of this country. 1 year you take a travel across the country. Don't speak to anyone. You must only observe. I have booked the tickets for you. You go around and travel across the country and finally decide what you should do for this country. Without knowing what the country is, you don't even think of what to do with the country. All the experts whom we bring from outside, they know only two places in India, Delhi and Bombay. And they want to frame policies for everywhere. So I started my travel in Ludhiana, Batala, Rajkot, Jamnagar, Morbi, right down to Thoothukudi. In 5 years, I almost suspended my profession to understand what is happening in this country. You know, you are all important people. You know which is the place with the highest per capita income in India? I will tell you which are not the places. It's not Delhi, it's not Bombay, it's not Bangalore, it's not Chennai, it's not Calcutta. It is a place called Morbi in Gujarat. Out of 2.4 lakh people, 1.4 lakh people are employed. You can Google and get this fact. 1,200 ceramic units, 1,200 diamond cutting units, 1,500 textile units. And you go to Morbi, they can't understand a sentence in English. Your English doesn't have anything to do with the development. But we have linked English and development so much that only those who know English know how to develop India. You go to Surat, you go to Shivakashi, you go to Tirupur. Tirupur is a place which exports $5 billion worth knitwear garments. There is a book written about it by two consultants from America, Boston Consulting. The title of the book is Fraternal Capital. They say 67% of the knitwear exporters, they are educated less than 10th standard. Only 9% are graduates. They negotiated the global level. In fact, when I went to Tirupur in 2002, 2003, I was stunned. They said, sir, we must know today evening US Federal Reserve is meeting, sir. We must know what is the rate of interest. They were so tuned. But we know nothing about them. Economic Times or Business Standard or Business Line will not write about them. They are the performers. When I spoke to the finance minister then, आप बार-बार तिरुपुर के बारे में बोल रहे हो, क्या हो रहा है उधर? Then I told him, it doesn't have even a 2-lane road. Did not have. Now it has. There is no airport. There is no infrastructure. Why I am mentioning it is, the real performing India is not in the radar of India. 60% of India's exports is sourced in the industrial clusters. 90% of the Indian employment is outside the organized sector. The organized sector, which is the public sector and private sector put together, has added only 2.9 million jobs between 1991 and now. Now, you can see it in the economic survey. When I made a presentation to the Prime Minister, he was shocked. Then I said, this country has been sustained only by small and medium industries, family-driven, savings-driven, and 58 million non-farming units produce 128 million employments, for which the bank advance is just 5% of the total requirement. They borrow at 60%, 90%, 120%, 360%. That was where the Mudra plan came. The Reserve Bank stopped it. I have appealed to many industrial bodies, please take it up. No one will. Industrial demand will not go up unless this sector comes up. This is my appeal to you. I have not come here to win your appreciation. I have come here to shake your conscience. I told you I am in the Vanaprastha stage long back. Now I am really in the Vanaprastha stage. My appeal is that we should move away from our personal predilections, likes, dislikes, what we want, what we don't want. Please think for the country. At least in one whole session, you will think of nothing except India. This is my appeal to you. Thank you very much.